Wholly connected to the tax cut insanity is the Deficit Commission inanity. The president's Deficit Commission is due to finish its work this week, but not before its co-chair whines about his critics. Former Senator Alan Simpson noting the nasty emails he has received and complaining about the media. Quoting, "You don't want to listen to the right and the left, the extremes. You don't want to listen to Keith Olbermann and Rush Babe and Rachel Minnow or whatever that is and Glenn Beck. They're entertainers. They couldn't govern their way out of a paper sack from the right or the left." Aside from the false equivalency contained therein, there is the fact that some of Simpson's harshest critics are not media people, but rather other policymakers who simply and strongly disagree with how best to achieve deficit reduction. Also, the fact is that he is one of those gentlemen who, while in office, put us in the paper sack. Also, to that end, two progressive groups are releasing alternative plans that would achieve deficit reduction without draconian cuts to Social Security and with higher taxes on the wealthy that are well within the range that existed prior to the Bush era. One of those groups, Demos, unveiled its blueprint today. And joining me now, the director of the Washington office of Demos, a nonpartisan public policy research and advocacy organization, Heather McGhee. Thanks again for your time tonight.
Thank you, Keith.
Before we get to your plan, we have a pretty good idea now of what Simpson Erskine Bowles is going to look like. What part of that do you like the least?
Well, honestly, I think the whole approach that basically says that this entire exercise is about sort of a math problem and not about what we at Demos and the Century Foundation, the Economic Policy Institute together did when we sat down to make our fiscal blueprint, which we released today. We asked, when we looked at all of the different ways that we could bring down the deficit, make the debt more sustainable over the long term, we asked one question, which is, what is this going to do for the most urgent problem facing our economy, which is the decline of the middle class and broad economic insecurity facing working and middle class Americans? It doesn't seem like the chair's proposal even thought about that question. On the issue of retirement security, for example, it says that young workers today who are middle class should actually get a third less in Social Security benefits. Out here in the real world, we know that 401ks are actually going to be entirely inadequate compared to the pensions that our grandparents had, and we're going to need more, actually, not less, from Social Security in the future.
Why is it that tax increases for the wealthy get so little traction? I think I know the answer to that one, but what is it in your plan? How would that be addressed in terms of this broad sacrifice that seems to be sacrificed by the largest number of people, not the people with the most amount of money?
Yeah, our plan really starts from, again, a real-world analysis saying that we are actually trying to run the government right now on a steam engine, and we're trying to sort of create a high-speed rail economy. We have the lowest share of federal revenues being collected as a share of our economy that we've had since 1950. That was before Medicare and Medicaid and federal spending on education. So what we say is it has to be looking at modernizing and expanding our revenue base. So, you know, obviously it's a no-brainer to do the millionaires' tax cuts and those under the Bush tax cuts, but we also look at equalizing the taxes on wealth and work, making sure that, you know, secretaries are paying a lower rate than their CEO bosses are on their stock dividends. We also looked at a financial speculation tax because there's a way to actually achieve a more stable financial sector by actually taxing really economically unproductive speculation that actually brought our economy to its knees.
So, Heather, when the president proposes something like he did today, this civilian federal worker pay freeze over the next 2 years, is any savings in that so small as to be meaningless, certainly when juxtaposed against what it would mean for taking money out of the spending economy? Or is it some way, is it acceptable? Is it a necessary sacrifice if it is to be coupled in some way with something equivalent from the upper class?
This is just another example of people not paying attention to what we really believe is the core question, which is how are working and middle-class families faring? Government workers are, for the vast majority of them, middle-class workers. You know, the Republican and sort of conservative ideology around demonizing federal workers is really cynical. It's trying to split one section of working and middle-class families against another. I mean, we're talking about nurses for veterans who make $28,000 a year, or a Border Patrol agent who makes $35,000 a year. These are not the people who caused the Great Recession. They're not the people who caused the deficit problems, and they're not the people who should be asked to sacrifice before millionaires and billionaires and hedge fund managers.
Government fat cats, that's the phrase, and it gets applied to the wrong people. I mean, Senator Mark Kirk of Illinois on day one is a bigger fat cat than the most sloth-like career civil servant ever could be. Heather McGhee, the director of the D.C. Office of Demos, great thanks and good luck with the plan.
Thank you.